Diana wraps it up with saying, I do feel like I want to stay in shutdown, particularly when I am there. When I'm not in the shutdown place, I see the benefit of moving into safety. But when I am shut down, I kind of want to be left alone, to just be alone and stay in my misery. Again, thank you for your time and work. You're very welcome, Diana, the person I'm calling Diana. So what does it mean? And I think a lot of people can echo this. So dear listener, what does it mean to want to stay in shutdown? What does that mean? If you can understand where Dan is coming from here, what does that mean? Because you probably don't want to. I mean, if I asked you, hey, do you want to exist in shutdown for the rest of your life? That you'd be like, no, I don't. But when you're in that state, it might feel like a want. You might feel like you want to stay there. So I want to kind of switch things up here. Let's change let's kind of reframe what want is. Wanting might indicate that the body has a natural pull toward being in shutdown, but toward some impulses of being in shutdown. That's what I mean. And then coming out when ready. So that the want might be you're in shutdown and your body has some sort of shutdown impulses that it needs to complete. And then it'll come out and climb the polyvagal ladder as it's ready to. And with shutdown, it'll be a slower process. Such as, and actually Diana said this, wanting to be left alone. That's very much a shutdown thing. I think in flight and fight, you need space and you want to be alone, but there's a different feel to it. This all is very much dependent on the feel of it. In shutdown, it's like an empty, heavy wanting to be left alone, isolating. With flight and fight, I think there's more energy to it. There's more aggression or anxiety to it. In shutdown, it's just an emptiness. So yeah, wanting to be left alone, that's very much a shutdown impulse, I would say. It could also be wanting to be in situations that are of lower stimulation. So if you're in a shutdown state, you're probably not going to have an impulse to go to a concert. You're probably not going to have an impulse to go on a hot air balloon. I don't know why that popped in my mind, but I don't think you'll have that. Oh, it's because I was watching America's Funniest Videos and somebody was in a hot air balloon. But again, I don't know why that popped in my mind right now. From a shutdown state, you probably would have an impulse to be immobile or still, or just kind of exist at a slower pace. You're probably not going to get into a race car and do some laps, I would assume. I think you need some flight energy for that. The goal here when it comes to these impulses of your defensive state, the goal here is that we want to listen to those impulses without judgment, and it's not easy. And these impulses are kind of tucked underneath our thoughts and our emotions, and even underneath our sensations that we can consciously attune to. So these impulses are potentially buried pretty deep. But we want to be able to listen to these wants, or these impulses, I would call them, without judging them, which means you have to be anchored in your safety state, of course. So to further clarify this reframe, rather than saying I want, maybe it's my body needs. And that means you pretty much have to be anchored in your safety state and then come from a perspective that is more of a witnessing, a third person observation of what your body needs. Now, you and your body are one and the same, I would say. So we're kind of doing a splitting here, which I'm not excited about, but conceptually it makes sense. So this is more of a third person observing and witnessing. Not full on curiosity and delving into your state, but just taking a step back, metaphorically, and noticing what's actually happening, that I do feel this way. I do have this impulse to be alone. I do have this impulse to be in lower stimulation. Maybe that means darkness. Now, if you could do that, then you could go to the direct experience. If you can come from the third person, from a witnessing, then you can go to the direct experience once you're anchored in safety. And then you can feel what that want is. You can feel the impulse within you. Once again, unstuck in defensive states I've built it for feeling the defensive state. And then eventually, yes, part of the UDS is getting to, what does my impulse say? Or what does my body want as far as the impulse goes? From my defensive state, what is the impulse? What's the action that my body needs to go through? Or maybe the context. This might mean like you're changing the environment that you're around or that you're in. Like for Shutdown in particular, you probably would do better with lower stimulation. This podcast is not therapy, not intended to be therapy or be a replacement for therapy. Nothing in this creates or indicates a therapeutic relationship. Please consult with your therapist or seek for one in your area if you are experiencing mental health symptoms. Nothing in this podcast should be construed to be specific life advice. It is for educational and entertainment purposes only. More resources are available in the description of this episode and in the footer of justinlmft.com.